Japan and China, the two largest creditors of the United States, are reducing their holdings of U.S. Treasuries. Why are they doing this? What impact will this have on the U.S. economy? Is this just a small adjustment or the start of a financial crisis? If interest rates rise sharply and U.S. debt grows, where will global investors redirect their money? Is the dollar still a reliable safe haven? How will major investment funds respond? When two of the most significant financial partners of the U.S. lose confidence in U.S. bonds, what is really happening? Let's analyze the situation. Japan has historically been a key investor in U.S. government bonds, which has helped keep borrowing costs low. However, in October 2024, Japan sold more than $20 billion in U.S. Treasuries. Why? One major reason is the significant depreciation of the Japanese yen against the U.S. dollar. In 2024, the yen reached its weakest level in decades, prompting the Japanese government to intervene. To stabilize its economy, Japan liquidated U.S. treasuries and used the proceeds to buy yen, aiming to prevent further devaluation. Additionally, Japan is prioritizing domestic investments in infrastructure, technology, and key industries instead of maintaining large holdings of U.S. debt. This is more than a financial decision. It is a long-term strategy to strengthen economic independence. China is following a similar path. Since peaking at $1.27 trillion in 2014, China's holdings of U.S. treasuries have fallen below $800 billion by the end of 2024, reaching their lowest level in over a decade. Amid ongoing trade tensions with the U.S., China has been diversifying its foreign reserves, shifting toward gold and investments in other markets. Beijing no longer wants to rely heavily on the U.S. dollar, which could lead to a significant transformation in the global financial landscape. The sell-off of U.S. treasuries by Japan and China could trigger negative effects on the U.S. economy. As these major players reduce their bond purchases, the U.S. government may need to raise interest rates to attract new investors. This would increase borrowing costs for the government, businesses, and ordinary Americans. With national debt exceeding $34 trillion, rising interest rates would lead to higher debt servicing costs, reducing the budget available for critical sectors like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. If this trend continues, the U.S. will face significant challenges in maintaining financial stability. If Donald Trump returns to the White House, how will this dynamic shift? During his previous term, Trump repeatedly criticized Japan and China for what he saw as unfair trade practices. He also implemented protectionist policies to shield American industries. If Trump returns, he may pressure Japan to continue purchasing U.S. treasuries, but will Japan comply? If the U.S. continues its protectionist approach, Japan may strengthen its economic ties with China, the European Union, and other Asian nations to secure its financial independence. Can the U.S. reduce its reliance on Japan and China? Will other nations follow their lead in cutting U.S. debt holdings? These changes could lead to a significant shift in the global financial system. If the U.S. does not act quickly, it may face even greater economic challenges in the coming years. In February 2025, the Trump administration imposed a 20% tariff on Chinese goods, escalating trade tensions. China retaliated by reducing U.S. imports while strengthening trade ties with Canada and the European Union. The result? American farmers and businesses lost access to a multi-billion-dollar market, while Canada and Europe capitalized on the shift. Was this a miscalculation by the U.S. or part of a larger strategy? Canadian oil replaced U.S. supply. For decades, the U.S. was China's leading supplier of crude oil and natural gas. However, in March 2025, after Washington imposed a 10% tariff on Canadian oil imports, Ottawa found a new customer, Beijing. China quickly increased its oil imports from Canada, primarily through the Trans Mountain Expansion (TMX) pipeline. This infrastructure upgrade boosted capacity from 300,000 to 890,000 barrels per day, providing a direct, cost-effective route to Asia. Now, 50% of Canada's crude oil exports flow to China, shifting Beijing's long-term energy dependence away from the U.S. But it's not just oil. Liquefied natural gas, LNG, is another sector where Canada is stepping in. The LNG Canada project, one of North America's largest LNG export facilities, is set to begin operations in 2025, with an annual export capacity of 14 to 26 million tons. Previously, the U.S. was one of China's largest LNG suppliers. However, after Washington imposed trade restrictions, China diversified its energy sources, increasing imports from Canada, Qatar, and Australia. The result? Canada is solidifying its role as China's strategic energy partner, gradually replacing the U.S. China is also reducing its imports of U.S. agricultural products. Once one of the world's largest buyers of American agricultural goods, China has significantly scaled back purchases since 2023. The most affected sector, soybeans. In 2016, the U.S. supplied 40% of China's soybean imports. By 2024, that number had fallen to just 18%, with Brazil and Argentina now accounting for 74% of China's soybean imports. Other key U.S. exports to China, such as wheat, corn, and cotton, are also being replaced by suppliers from South America and Europe. Similarly, China has increased its meat imports from Europe, particularly from Spain and the Netherlands. Why? Stronger food safety regulations, more stable supply chains, and competitive pricing compared to U.S. exports. In 2023 alone, EU pork exports to China surged by 35%, while U.S. pork exports declined due to tariffs and stricter Chinese inspection policies. For American farmers, this shift is a disaster. Losing China's vast market leads to overproduction, falling prices, and declining profits. Smaller farms in particular are at the highest risk due to their limited ability to adapt quickly. Beyond agriculture, America's industrial sector is also feeling the impact. China is cutting investments in the U.S., with major tech companies like Google, Tesla, and Intel losing Chinese market share. Instead, China is shifting partnerships to Canada, Europe, and BRICS nations. The long-term effect: a gradual decline in U.S. global economic influence. This trade war is reshaping international commerce. Canada and the EU are gaining billions in lost U.S. trade, while American farmers, tech companies, and industries are struggling. The big question remains: will the U.S. adjust its strategy to regain lost ground, or is this the start of a long-term decline in U.S. economic dominance? If Washington continues imposing tariffs, it risks further isolating American businesses from global supply chains. Meanwhile, Beijing's aggressive trade diversification strategy is forming new alliances that could permanently reshape global economic power. The longer this standoff lasts, the harder it will be for the U.S. to recover its lost influence. In early 2025, U.S.-Canada relations took a sharp downturn when President Trump imposed high tariffs on all Canadian imports, including a 10% tax on Canadian energy products. Intended to address illegal immigration and the fentanyl crisis, these tariffs sent shockwaves through the Canadian economy. The long-standing U.S.-Canada trade partnership is now at risk, and Canada's energy sector finds itself caught in the middle of a political storm. Historically, Canada has relied on the U.S. as its primary energy customer, sending over 97% of its crude oil exports south. However, Trump's tariffs have forced Canada to seek new markets. One key opportunity: Japan. With growing demand for LNG, Japan is a strategic partner for Canada. Proximity to Canada's west coast reduces shipping costs and enhances competitiveness in the global energy market. Alberta's government is actively securing long-term LNG export contracts with Japanese energy companies. This shift signals a new era for Canada, one where energy independence from the U.S. is no longer just a goal, but a reality. With Canada diverting LNG supplies to Japan, the U.S. faces potential energy supply disruptions, rising prices, and increased vulnerability in the global market. The balance of power is shifting, and the U.S. may be left behind. I have shared my opinion, but what do you think? Leave your comment, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. See you soon.